Now, I would like to introduce you to the speakers, Siddhant Shah and Priya Iyer. Siddhant Shah is a national level awardee, a serial TEDx speaker, and the founder of Access for All. Siddhant has been consulting educational institutes and cultural organizations to integrate an inclusive learning approach. Siddhant has conducted several teachers upskilling and training programs to enable sensory arts integrated learning, which is SAIL, across the country with Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, private schools, and universities around the world. Siddhant has also authored a Let's Sail, a teacher's resource handbook for enabling arts integrated learning. Their recent initiative is Read Inclusive, India's first diversity and inclusion-based pop-up library, which they set up in schools, corporate, and public spaces. This session will be co-facilitated by Priya Iyer, who is the Senior Academic Manager, English Programs at British Council, India. Welcome, Siddhant and Priya. I would also like to welcome Manish and Atul, our sign language interpreter from Access for All. Over to you, Siddhant.
Thank you, Payal. Thank you, Priya, and thank you, British Council, for this opportunity. Since we are talking about inclusion, I would give a brief visual description of myself for all the attendees joining here. I am wearing a t-shirt with a brooch with mirrors on it. I have black glasses, and you can see my face and my body up to my chest on the screen. I will try to keep the pace slow as I have a sign language interpreter here. And at any point, if there is any questions, the chat option will be available for you, and Priya can help us with that, with any questions and queries. We really hope that this session helps all of us be more inclusive and accessible. And I will share my screen now. Priya, please give me an audio prompt if you can see my screen.
I can. Thank you.
So we'll start with this, and I'll let Priya set the context for us.
Thank you, Siddhant. And just taking cue from Siddhant's introduction, I'm going to try and introduce myself for everyone. I am Priya Iyer, and like Payal said, I work with the British Council as a senior academic manager. And today I'm wearing a lime green kurta with some floral print on it. I have mid-length hair, and you can see from my face up to my neck on the screen. I hope I've done justice, Siddhant.
Yes.
Very quickly, the session today will talk about how we as teachers and teacher educators can try and make our language classrooms more inclusive. So we will look specifically at 3 ready-to-use activities that will promote language development, critical thinking, and cultural awareness, making the language learning process more dynamic and enriching. There will also be some adaptive ideas based on grade level and language proficiency of your students shared today. And of course, all that we do under Teacher Connect workshops is mostly low resource so that you can adapt it to your contexts. So we will look at low resource methods of integrating arts in language classes. I'm really looking forward to the ideas going to be shared today, and I hope, like Siddhant said, you find this valuable and useful in your context.
Thank you, Priya. And taking from there, and before we set sailing on this workshop and the ideas that we would be discussing today, we feel that it is important to understand where this idea generated from, and also introduce a key element which is part of the National Education Policy 2020, which aims at making learning a holistic experience which enables everyone to come together. And if you look at the words, it says integrated, and hence we look at also inclusion, where the resources that we would be sharing can also be used by teachers, educators. You can adapt them in your class, along with, even if you're working with children with special needs, in different formats, in different levels of their proficiency. And towards the end, making it an engaging experience where they learn something from it, not only just remembering it, but in making it an enjoyable session for them. Also looking at some hands-on activity where you start looking at resources around you. You also either bring things to your classroom or also take your classroom out in different places. You set them in different contexts. It could be of an art gallery, in a museum, at a concert if possible, but in the control of the teacher and the school, how you would like to take it. So before we start with the AIL and before we start sailing, can in the chat, can you just write what does AIL or art integrated learning mean to you? Like as educators, teachers, if you've heard this term, what do you think it means? And I would request Priya to read out the answers for me.
Sure, Siddhant, I'll help you with the answers. So please use the chat function and let us know what does art integrated learning or AIL means. So we have some answers coming in: express emotions, inclusion of art, integrating one subject with another. I'm going to try and keep up with the pace, emphasizing on making
Okay.
arts inclusive,
Okay.
related con. Okay, using visuals to facilitate, to include art
Using
in.
visuals.
Yeah, they said that. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Uh, Being creative, holistic development, using arts to help in language, using art as a
Okay.
medium to teach language.
Fantastic. I think you all know what we are doing today. So I'm really happy with this answer and the things that are coming around, because I think we all are on the same page. And that is exactly what AIL stands for, right? Like, how do you use various different arts as a method of learning through them and learning with them? It is not just to put this clear out there, like it is, this session is not about teaching art, but this is teaching with art. It is teaching through different formats of art. And how can you get them to explore, be more curious, get them to look at different things and even express themselves through these different art forms and learn various different elements of a language class. And again, a question, a lot of us talk about AIL, but only through, and I was happy that somebody used the word visual, because that is where it comes over here also. But visual arts is not the only thing that we would be looking at. We look at music, we look at poems, we look at theater, we look at various elements of arts. And these different segments of arts range across the medium of architecture, filmmaking, music, various formats. Of course, visual arts, painting, drawing, they all are part of that. But you can also explore other mediums too to integrate this into your learning. And while we do this, we also talk about why sensory elements along with physical access of art, and we focus on part. It becomes core with the format. Am I audible? Hello?
Yes, you are.
Priya, am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Sorry. So the idea is that how sensory elements also get integrated into this, for the key reason being, like if you have a student with various levels of sensory requirements or needs, and irrespective of any form of impairment, you can still integrate that in the learning. So different elements of sense, sight, hearing, smell, even touch, creating different mediums and tactile materials that you can use in this space to discuss and talk about that, and specifically focus on the language challenge. So let's get started and we sail through this. We sail through different elements over here. And the word SAIL actually stands for Sensory Arts Integrated Learning. What we have done over here is we've giving you three ready to use methods, a framework that you can integrate into your classroom. You can change the elements of the arts over here, but use the framework and get started with that. So the first one is to look at how can you learn verbs and Warli together. So if you look at this artwork, can you in the chat write down minimum 3 verbs that you see that you can describe the artwork with? Like you see some actions that are happening over here. Can you put them in the chat box?
So some people are saying dance, dancing, play, dance, work, carrying,
Mm-hmm.
celebrating, running,
Okay.
pulling,
Yes.
jumping, riding a carriage, churning butter, walking.
Butter. Okay.
Facebook responses coming in from our Facebook Live audience, plowing, walking,
Yeah.
farming.
Just one artwork and so many things to discuss, right? You could pick up this artwork and talk about the complete daily activities that you're doing, that one does, or talk about different activities that different people do. What are the things that they do, like different actions that they are conducting, different things that they do. You can look at domestic chores, you can look at things that people do outside, also looking at different settings and scenarios. So this is the power of art, like that one thing. And it is not only about, like, writing it down on the blackboard and talking about that, but suddenly you are now using your eyes. That is this hand eye coordination while you're looking at and writing. You're constantly bringing these associations together and also opening it up for interpretation. I really like that idea somebody mentioned, that about churning the butter. I always thought that that was pounding of the masalas. And then we start having a discussion, and then you use this artwork to talk about how it kind of grows from there. So every session that we have, like, we have divided this into 2 parts, where you have the delivery model. At any point you want, please feel free to take a screenshot of this, but otherwise the entire PDF and the presentation will be available over a link for you to use it, so don't worry about that. And we've also mentioned some other activities that you could do. Now, you could also do it in the reverse way, where you introduce the artwork, you show them the style of the artwork, how it is, how people show the activities and things over there. And then you give them different words and ask them to create those words, and in the form of the stick figure. You can also do it through the method of collage, where some words are created and some words are picked up from a magazine and they're kind of put parallel next to it. So you have your Warli painting and you put your an image of that particular action next to it. So different ways of integrating the same artwork in different formats. Also, depending on the seniority of your class, you can make the levels tougher, you can make it easier, you can make it more interesting in different formats. Another thing that you could also do is have this Wali painting and enact different actions that are there. So in this way, you kind of start integrating the format of learning, making it more experiential with them. So if they get to pound something in class, they are bound to remember that for a longer duration of time, that this action is associated with it. That's why when you do something, when you integrate more than one of your sense in learning, it becomes way more inclusive for a child to learn and take it ahead from there. Priya, I'll let you take this up.
Absolutely, Siddhant. I think you actually simply put a very important language theory, and we keep talking about total physical response in language teaching, where the learner is involved in doing that action and thereby associating that action with the word and remembering it better. I really liked how you put it across very simply. Thank you. So while we were doing this, Siddhant, I was wondering how is all this Warli going to come about in the textbook? And that's when I
Yeah.
came up with this one from the Marigold series, book 4. This is an excerpt from that book for class 4. And I just looked at the first few pages, and right there was this poem about which is titled "Wake Up." It has a whole lot of actions going on in the poem, and I think that's the best place to integrate what you just said and turn that into a more experiential session for your learners. So what we're saying here, what I just like to say is what we're saying here is not just out of the blue. It is very much doable in your actual classroom, in with your textbook lessons. with I mean all these ideas can be integrated into the textbook lessons. Over to you, Siddharth.
Super. Thank you. Now we move to the next part, which is a second activity around the same artwork. And you can, as you see, that this artwork is very versatile. It gives you various different ways of integrating and using this. So what, while that was more of an activity where we're doing it together, but here I'm going to ask you to write the first part of it, and where you describe the artwork or you tell the story of the artwork in 2 lines, then you do it with 4 lines, and then you take it forward with 6 lines. So that way you start observing multiple things. You have a macro perspective, you have a micro perspective of an artwork, and you start observing what are the different things that are happening. So in next couple of minutes, if you can just put 2 line description about what is the story that's being told over here, what's happening in the artwork, and you can use the chat option to,
Yeah, we've started getting in responses even before you could complete, Siddhant.
okay.
Depicts a village life, rustic life, people working hard.
Mhm.
It's an old age story. It's a tribal group dance, describes farming techniques. It
Okay, okay.
depicts the day-to-day life of farmers. The farmers have got good crop, so they are celebrating.
Fantastic. I think that's amazing. Also, somebody spoke about the dancing over here, and this is one homework I'm going to give all the teachers here. Whenever you get a chance, do go on YouTube and look for the video of the Warli tribe that's dancing. And when you see this spiral over here, you will actually see that the spiral is actually like 4 or 5 people, but they're dancing in that format. They're dancing with the tune of the musical instrument this person is playing in the center. And they all, so it's not like all these people are dancing, but there are 5 people who are constantly in that motion. That motion is depicted through this.
Oh.
So this is a fantastic opportunity, and we are using different art forms and craft forms over here. You can use, like, I know there are teachers that are here from various different states of India, and I think all the states have some fantastic folk art, traditional art forms that can be beautifully integrated into this practice. So I think thank you so much everyone for sending out the stories. And then once you start discussing the story, you can then go about why is this crop so good, where do we know that the crops are good, what is happening over here, how are they celebrating, what could be the music that's there, and then again you start building the story from here. This helps you in composition skills, writing sentences, forming sentences, punctuations, so many different things that can be put together in this format. So these are again your delivery model and different activities that you could do as you were speaking. You can also look at how this can be done as a group or as an individual activity by a student. Okay, over to you, Priya.
Yes, so again, bringing in the textbook connect. So, okay, we're talking about Warli, but how does this look like in my textbook? So, the Honeysuckle series of books, and this one is from class 6. There is a specific note to teachers if you see on the screen, and I'm going to read it out for everyone. It says there's a folk tale. So, How the Dog Found Himself a New Master is the title of the lesson. It's a folk tale, and folk tales are popular stories passed on generally in spoken form from one generation to the other. Tell the story before asking children to read the text. Divide it into 3 or 4 parts, each part ending where the listener wonders what comes next. Word search clues to be explained at length before it is attempted. All hidden words are adjectives here. Another word search for nouns or verbs can easily be prepared in class. So I think what Siddhant just shared here fits beautifully into this lesson, where you could use those folk tales or folk dances or those elements to actually enhance the learner's experience of understanding language associated with it.
Super. Thank you, Priya. And I please when you take any of these elements, see how you can integrate them with your existing curriculum, even with other chapters, and you can have a journey that starts very early. By the time they come to that chapter, you can always go back to the art form or the music or the film that you're talking about and integrate that. So with that, we move to our second activity, where we also start looking at different elements around us. So as Priya also mentioned, and we've been cognizant of the fact that we need to look at low resources, like where we don't have to have multiple expensive things that you need to bring, but simple things that can be done in person or even things that can be done virtually. So this one over here looks at the other elements of arts, which is your museum, your gallery, art exhibitions, different places, historical objects, architecture. And what you do is you actually ask your students to bring like different random diverse objects. They don't have to be in connection with each other. They could be literally like you have seashells, you have a pocket watch, you have some feathers, flowers. They're not all connected with each other. But now, how do we make associations? How do we also expand our vocabulary to understand different elements? How do we look at a shell and learn the word about spiral, different forms, different shapes that are there? How do you start describing them in different formats? And one of the things that we have already done for you is set these things in a format of a haiku. Seashells whisper tales, keys unlock memories' doors, feathers mark time's fall. Now, this is one format of writing. It's a structure that has 575 syllable structure in 3 lines. Haiku comes from Japan, and it's a very interesting way of putting things together. For teachers who are also working with different groups and different segments, you can bring in sensory elements in that, about sight, about touch, smell. You can also bring onomatopoeia in different ways of like bringing in the sounds of it, not through the sound, but also putting it in the poetic format which is there. So likewise, whatever you are teaching, you can incorporate that. And again, Priya has put some interesting resources for us over here. Over to you, Priya.
Thanks, Siddhant. So again, came across this one from the Class 6 Honeysuckle book. Again, in the same section for Note to Teachers, there was this lesson titled The Quarrel. And it says, I'll read through the entire thing very quickly, but I'd like to draw your attention to the last 2 points which I've highlighted. So it says, discuss the points provided at the beginning of the poem. After reading and rereading of the text and completion of exercises, try the activity. Ask children to rearrange the lines below. Write them on the blackboard first so that it reads like a poem. The first line is the opening line, and then they've uh, shared the lines of the poetry. Draw their attention to the rhyming words in rearranging lines. Can they redo the second stanza in the same way? Encourage them to try it, help them to do it. And that's what we just did. We helped you to do it.
Super. Fantastic. And I think your textbook has so many resources that can be connected with various different art forms around you. Like what we spoke was about, like, objects that they were there in the museum. You could also do this inside a museum around on a visit. If they are going out somewhere, if they have an off-site, you can always take this particular part of the curriculum that could be integrated while they are there on site. So again, that would be a retaining, long-lasting memory for them. And now we move to the last one, where we've put two different covers of a vinyl record. What I would ask the teachers to do and everyone present here is that look at the covers and see if you can find some similarities between both of them, and list down around 3 to 5 similarities. What is it that you see? Is it the color, the positioning, the creation of the cover design that's there? And also, while you're doing that, remember that this is for a vinyl record. It's for a record. It has music element in that. So how something that is intangible, something that you can't see, is also represented visually. So how do we also bring in this idea of analysis? How do we, you can also use this as a method of essay writing, like comprehending information. And I think Priya, you would have received, because we have a fantastic group who is super enthusiastic and are sharing their ideas. So
Yes,
over
yes,
to Priya.
yes. Yes, he's a maestro immersed in music, element floral theme in the background, playing the sitar, uh,
Playing the sitar, yes.
rustling of leaves. I think they're talking about the picture on the right.
Okay.
Birds, nature is illustrated. The Facebook Live audience also is saying dual images. Uh, the love, the
Dual
mood.
images. That's a nice one.
Yeah, yeah,
How,
that's a very different interpretation. Yeah.
yeah, and when you look at those dual images, now again re-look at these both the graphics and think, if have you seen like a miniature painting, and is it a representative form of a miniature painting? Does it draw some inspiration from there? And the dual painting, that style is known as a symmetry. It's a mirror symmetry.
Somebody said that mosaics and they also said mirroring, representation of,
Mirroring, yes.
yeah, yeah, representation of music is harmony,
That's fantastic.
earthy tones.
Earthy tones, fantastic. Again, a fantastic analysis of the way that intangible element of music is represented visually. Also, one more key element. I don't know if you all have, if somebody's put in, but about architectural elements. You see how the musician is kind of positioned under an arch or in under a dome that you see over here. And anyone who's put mentioned architecture, Priya?
I maybe I missed it, but there's this talking about
Okay.
thatched roofs. Uh,
Thatched roofs, yeah.
yeah, Mughal era painting, reflection of art and culture.
So again, a simple thing like a vinyl record cover or even cover designs, your film posters, so many other things that we see around us
We have
that
somebody
are
from Face.
associated.
Sorry to cut you there. Sorry. We
No,
have
no.
somebody from Facebook who's saying taste of classic architecture.
Okay. Okay. Yes. Classical architecture. Also, with anything with the font, look at the font, how the font's put in, Does it have a lyrical quality to it?
Both artistic graphics represent a duet here.
I was waiting for someone to actually bring that up. Thank you so much, whoever's gotten that. You see two artists over there. You have that that can also be two formats of representation, right? Again, like, and this is exactly what you do. This is exactly how you start getting this entire activity of critical analysis. Like, how do you analyze a graphic for what it is? Like, is it done only for the purpose of it? Is there a deeper meaning? Like, and even like when you're writing an essay, like, how do you construct your entire discussion? How do you base your discussion around what is happening? How is it? There are three ways of looking at any art form, and I typically do this with most of the teachers, even with the students when I'm doing that. You can either start with the frame of the image and then go inwards, or you start with one element and then you spread from there. Or largely, if you see an image that's symmetrical, start with the center, because that's how it kind of grows to you. And all images have so much, every image that we see, they work in macro and micro formats. You can go closer and zoom into one part of it. Again, that opens up multiple different layers of the artwork. Same way when you're looking at this. Another one, somebody could also, when they're doing this, you could also think about the ways in which this cover was designed. Did they use the technique of collaging? Did they have a photograph which was kind of pasted and then things were done around the photograph? Or like there were 2 3 different mediums of the miniature style representative, like photos, digital formats. And this can then expand depending on, again, the seniority of the class that you're dealing with. And the same activity can be looked through various different models. You can start talking about, this can also be done to bring in a discussion or uh, start a discussion around style of art. Symbolism, particularly, like what does it symbolize? How is it changing? What is the connection and association it has? This could also be one fantastic way, which I personally enjoy doing, is NVR, which stands for non-verbal reasoning, where you don't have to use words, but you have to use visuals to describe something. You use visuals as a format of communicating something. For students who are non-verbal, this is one format that works really well with the communication board, the communication chart. This could also be integrated into their learnings about it. While we did this with the record cover, while we are looking at the cover, the elements of architecture, design, and deconstructing it, you could do the same with other elements that we've mentioned. You could pick up book covers and look at how something that's written, but the cover represents that, or does it talk about it? Is it completely different from what is put in? It also gets you to start discussing the levels of abstract thinking, looking at how abstract art also brings the discussion around diverse themes, topics that are more relevant. You could look at magazine covers, you can look at film posters, even like something as simple as your advertisements or the cartoons that are there in the newspaper. What are they talking about? What the current trends are being discussed in the society? Various different elements that could be picked up from those visual elements with intangible and tangible elements put together can be used in your classroom, where you're getting them to think about critical analysis. How do they also get into their writing skills, deconstructing thing one thing at a time, creating a structure, creating a format around that. So on that note, I end my presentation and we open up for various different discussions. But at any point, and as Payal mentioned, we've also authored one book on Sail. Let's Sail is name of the book, that looks at various other resources. At any point in time you would like to get in touch with us, we are more than happy to help you with that. Like, we've been working with diverse schools around that. So at any point, any schools like you want uh, us to help you with those resources, we would love to do that. And please do connect with us if there are any questions and queries that we could help you with even after the session. Today we have like our next 20-25 minutes to discuss that, but if there is anything that you would like to take it up later also, we'll be more than happy to do that. Thank you so much. And once again, I would like to thank Priya and the entire team of British Council for doing this and using this opportunity. And I would like to also mention that this is the month of December. We very strategically wanted to do it in this month because also this month celebrates diversity and disability, because 3rd December was International Disability Day. And this month is typically used globally as a month to put a platform for discussions, ways, methods, resources around disability access, inclusion, and integrating them in mainstream. So again, thank you everyone for participating. We're really happy that you could take something with you. And over to you, Priya.
Thank you, Siddhant. I think it's been an eye-opening session, and I'm sure the audience will resonate with this thought. And I don't think any of us, when we think of art and visual arts, we always think about, okay, painting. Okay, but I am not a great artist. I'm not a great painter. How am I going to do this as a teacher? So that's one thing that comes to everybody's minds. So all the resources that you spoke about, do I need to be great at art to do it, or can I just use?
No, I think it is not about that. I think one personally, I feel that we all have aesthetics, right? Like, I think aesthetic is something that is so integral to all of us, right? Whenever we all go out, right, we all want to dress up, and like we that's simple format of aesthetic. So art is around us, like in the way we dress up, the kind of things that we see, the way we approach certain things. And a lot of these resources are very readily available, right? And as you saw, like some of the resources were something that you could pick up from your magazine. Like even 5 things that are there around you could be used for multiple discussions, right? Like while we are discussing this, I have this tiny little elephant in front of me that I'm showing on the screen. And this is made out of jamdani fabric, recycled. Now, these 3 things, recycling, art forms, elephant. There's so much to then discuss and talk about. So I think you don't have to be an artist, but I think you just have to have an open mindset, be curious. And I think as teachers, that's something that we all do. And if we're able to bring that in, we can really bring various different elements, modern art, contemporary art, even our traditional art forms, which can be integrated into it.
Absolutely, Siddhant. Another very interesting question here from Meena is, could we integrate doodling as a similar form of art integration then?
Yeah, for sure. I think if I would do verbs and doodling, or in different action verb and just line drawing, simple line drawings that are there. So I think like those elements are something that any format of art can definitely be put into this. You don't have to have a, you don't have to have that artistic ability, but I think even if you pick up pen and if everyone starts doodling, something or the other would come out of that. Even you can use craft, you can use music, dance performance can be incorporated.
Yeah, and I think somebody just said
Definitely.
puppets. Yeah, yeah.
Puppets, yeah, totally, totally. Something that is animated works fantastic with the kids because again, like the action of your puppets come together, and different formats of different puppets can be incorporated. So if you have something which is more light based or something that you can use a sock puppet, you can also have shadow puppetry, and that itself can then talk about the technique, you can talk about the process, you can talk about the art form. So there are so many different ways in which you can integrate that.
Absolutely, Siddhant. Uh, there's a question. I'd request everybody to please use the question and answer tab or that function to ask us the question so that your questions are not
I
lost.
saw one interesting question. Can I reply to that?
Yes, please.
Somebody asked about graffiti, and I think that again is a, a fantastic way of being aware of our own surrounding. So if we are going around, like again, if you're out with the students, how do you look at the elements around you? Like, how do you look at things that are there? And when you look at the elements that are showcased over there, the graffiti works which are there, take a moment, like if they can bring a picture to that, what is the artist trying to do over there? Are they trying to communicate? Are they giving a message? What is the artist using? What is the format that the artist is integrating in their style? I think yes, that is one thing that you can definitely use.
There was a question around how can we use this for lower level classes, and I think we did demonstrate activities across grades. So the verb Warli with verbs with Warli can be done with actually practically any grade, depending on the challenge level of the verbs that you use. I think you can
Yeah.
adapt it.
Also, there was somebody who asked for the kindergarten one. You can actions, things that they are making, right? Things that they are doing. It can be taken to any format. Like if you're teaching them, like even their nursery rhymes, if they're being taught through this method, they all can integrate that in their learning. Sometimes
Absolutely.
I feel like it's a creative challenge for the teachers, how art forms can be brought in. We actually integrated this in one of the art galleries while we had students, and they were as young as like the first grade students who were just made to look at the artwork and replicate that. What was it that they saw and how would they enact? And while they were enacting, they started understanding simple things like who needs to stand in the front, who needs to stand in the back. And that way, you're kind of learning a very important element of background and foreground. We've also
Very
used Warli as a method of learning geometrical shapes methods. Warli and geography can be taught together. Repetition, pattern making, and Gond art form, which is there from Madhya Pradesh, can be integrated. So there are so many different ways in which you can pick up this. Since we are looking at English as an element over here, we are looking at language classroom, but I think this arts integrated learning can be taken to any subject.
Very true, Siddhant. We have a question from Sunita who asks how to implement this with prep students. I'm not very sure what she means, but yeah, that's one question. And there's another one from Srimati who says, can we use puppets to kindle ideas? We definitely can.
Specific. Sorry, I, I lost. There's something that said specific question. Specific examples of sale for teaching stories. Uh, okay. I think when you look at storytelling, there are three important elements that you can bring in. One is the setting of the story. Now, how do you talk about the setting? How do you discuss the story in the formats? And I'll talk about the storytelling, how we've used that in, especially in schools in second tier and third tier cities, even in villages in India, where we've taken one newspaper and got them to tell the story. So one is the setting, second is the narrative that you're setting up, and third is the characters. What we did was we picked up a newspaper, and in that classroom, everyone had to look at the newspaper, figure out different settings. So somebody saw a picture of a bridge, somebody saw a picture of sports person playing in a playground, sorry, in a stadium. Different settings were there, so we got our settings of the story. So we knew the different places. We figured out different narratives from the newspapers that were there, like what is happening. Somebody is attending somebody's party, this person is giving a talk on world economics, some forum, various different stories that were there, and everyone had to pick up five characters. And now, based on those five characters, they had to give a story connecting all different sites, settings that they had picked up, and integrating the narrative which was there. Which meant that everybody looked at the same newspaper, but they had different characters. 30 students had 30 different stories from one thing. And this also talks about how inclusion works, that we receive in same information, but all of us have different ways of comprehending that and then presenting it. I think that's where you start celebrating diversity of a classroom also. And once that happens, then the students just take it over from there, because the way they think, the creative challenge, the creative thinking that they bring to the classroom is fantastic.
Very true, Siddhant. I think that's a beautiful example that you've shared about making your classrooms inclusive. Uh, there's a question from Bhupendra who says, how much role cinema or relevant videos will play while teaching a topic?
With cinema, films, and other elements, I also leave on the discretion of the teachers sometime, because a lot of information is readily available. And thank you for bringing that up, because elements are quite sensitive. Also, we need to have certain trigger warnings in place when students are exposed to those different formats of cinemas and all. But I think if you use that as a medium of, like, looking at a scene, and like, then we did one where we call it pause and play, where the students have no clue about what film we have. We typically pick up from a different language, from a different country. Just randomly, everybody decides different time periods and time seconds. This is another activity that is there in my book also, where you decide different seconds. So somebody, 10 students decide 3 minutes 33 seconds. Somebody will decide 4 minutes 15 seconds. You come to that time frame, and then the student has to anticipate what has happened before and what is going to happen after this picture frame. So why did that actor stand in this position? Why was he paused over there? So what was he doing? And after that, this is a frame that he does. Following that, what is going to happen next? That then starts becoming, we start looking at, like, why are we doing this? Okay, what was the reason? Does the costume or the garment that the other actor is playing, does it set a context for us? The observation of the things behind them, do they have any setting formats for that? And along with that, we also would teach about social science, different elements that are integrated. So there are different ways of using films, but I would say the teachers would really have to keep that in their control, because otherwise it kind of goes beyond your control too. And I'm being very honest about the practicalities of it.
Thank you, Siddhant. Divya Gupta asks, how do we use touch as arts integrated learning?
Touch is again something that we work extensively with blindfolds and tactile methods. Touch, sound, and smell, the three integrated things that we do. We don't like to only use one element, but we particularly focus on multi-sensory approach. So if you are closer to the sea or the beach, and if you're taking the students out there, one of the things that you could integrate is touch, not only through hands but also through feet. Like, where are they walking, what are they observing, how do you integrate touch through different elements on your body. We've done a fantastic study about how we recognize pattern words and based on touch, where it's a simple game I think we all have played. But you ask every five of them, four of them to stand in one line with their backs, and they keep their hand on the back, and then you make the letter. Now the first person at the back actually sees the word, or they see, and we kind of play that around with different age groups. So either we put numbers, we put words, we also put two-letter words, three-letter words, we also give pictures, and now they have to draw that picture. So how do you simplify that? So if it's an apple, by the end of it becomes a snowman. So I think that also kind of grows and cascades and talks about our coordination, understanding touch through different parts of our body. One of the things that we've done was that we asked students to write down seven things that they have felt through their feet in the whole day. So right from the rug, the cushion, the bed, the mattress, when they get up, the floor mat which is there, the bathroom tiles, the wet bathroom tile. So now if the bathroom tile is smooth or rough, why is that texture over there? Is it to protect you so that you don't slip? And then we start having different discussions around it. So touch is not only with the hands, but you can integrate different parts of the body too.
Perfect. Uh, there
I
are
see
quite
somebody
a
saying
few
they do this with the students. Thank you.
great, Siddhant. There are quite a few questions, and I'm going to club them together because I think they're asking for the same thing. Teachers are asking about the spectrum of students who are differently abled with, uh, specially abled students. Uh, it could be dyslexia, it could be dyspraxia, autism, and the entire spectrum. And how can we use what you just shared in the presentation with these students?
So one thing specifically when you're working with children with special needs on the spectrum and all, we need to identify the spectrum first, like what are we working with, and then accordingly we segregate. Now the framework, say for example, if I was to look at the framework of the Warli art that we discussed, right, the storytelling one, then when I know that I'm working with children with who are on the autism spectrum, they would have repetition as a thing. Clarity would work really well with them. I cannot show anything that's too cluttered. Hence, I will have to show pictures, graphics which are clear, which don't have, there should not be visual noise. And this, as special educators, we all know. So once you're doing that, you will have to start scanning your graphics, your images that you're selecting accordingly. You will also have to be aware of certain trigger points. So while you see something which has too much of visual noise, you'll have to use images that are more simplified. With, like, particularly I personally experience mild dyscalculia, where too many numbers become a challenge for me to comprehend at one point. So avoid using number charts and like things like that, where like you see multiple elements coming together. There also break information down. While you're working with them, use high contrast color, because high contrast color formats work really well. It allows also those with children with low vision or even other who are neurodivergent, it helps them comprehend information clearly. Second, in certain cases you may introduce the topic in the class. While you're working with them, you will have to break it step by step. I cannot go and say, oh, this is this is the whole thing that we are doing. But I will have to inform them, now we are doing this. From this, we move to step two. From that, we move to step three. You'll have to clearly give instructions so that everybody knows what to do, what they should do. I think these are some of the ideas that you can incorporate in your classroom.
Great idea, Siddhant. And I think Sharon has a question which is kind of opposite to what we just discussed. She asks, could you suggest ideas to balance the SAIL activity for an inclusive class which has less number of special learners? I think she's misunderstood this to be only for special learners or mainly for special learners. So she has
Sorry, how do I?
less number of special learners, and how could you suggest ideas to balance the SAIL activities for an inclusive class which has less number of special learners?
I think like less or more does not matter because I think it's about integrated classroom learning. So in that context, I think everyone can learn from this.
Absolutely. There's another, I think we have time for one more, the last question now. This is an anonymous attendee. Using visuals will initiate discussion on a large scale. How do we narrow it to the topics that need to be done, for example, other grammar concepts?
I think that's a very broad topic, but I think your different grammar concepts would have to be dealt. There are depending if you give me one particular one that you want me to talk about, I could, because there are so many different concepts that are there.
I think you'll also have to you need to choose your uh, resources
Yeah,
actively, thinking, keeping in mind what the aim is. So, for example, we wanted to do verbs here with Warli. So that was the specific aim. The questions that you built around Siddhant, around that same image,
yeah.
were different when you used it for verbs with Wali. And then when you brought it into a storytelling setup, the questions you set up to use that same image was different. So it's also about thinking through which image you're using, what you're using it for, and what is your end aim, I feel.
No, agree. I agree with you, and I think that is how it should be because that also sets the context for a lot of things. That it sets the context of what you are teaching, and this is to integrate. That it doesn't mean that all sessions have to be taught with that. It is part of the certain thing that you select.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Siddhant. I think we have time only for so many questions. Uh, Thank you very much to the audience. You've been amazing. You've been very engaging and active. Very good questions and thought-provoking ones. And there's been a lot of learning on this session, both the Facebook audience and the Zoom audience here.